Great pleasure to present to you the preliminary fiscal year 19 budget for New York City. And I want to start by saying this budget process proceeded against a backdrop of tremendous uncertainty, particularly in Washington and to some extent in Albany as well. And we said to ourselves as we embarked on this process that we would have to be very careful and very sparing in the actions that we took. But that we would make decisions based on a very simple notion, and it's one I articulated in my inauguration speech. The question is, what will help make us the fairest big city in America? This is the central notion. This is what this administration has been devoted to, and more we hear from the people of our communities as their priority to continue to make life more fair, to continue to address some of the injustices and inequities of the past, and to do it with all the power and the ability of the city government. So you're going to see examples of that in this budget, and that's going to be the prism through which we make decisions going forward. Past 4 years, I think we have proven that a city like New York can make big changes fast. Neighborhood policing is a great example, a change of philosophy. As Terry Monahan said the other day, literally inventing a new type of policing and proving it can work better than the old type. Making sure people are treated fairly, healing the wounds of the past, bringing officers and community together in partnership. What we've been able to do with the equity and excellence vision for our schools, creating more fairness in our school system, creating more opportunity, particularly for kids and for schools that didn't have it, and most notably things like pre-K that created a universal opportunity for a strong start for our kids. Obviously, the affordable housing plan, addressing the fact that some could afford to live in the city and others couldn't, and trying to make sure that more and more people in New York City could actually stay in the city and the neighborhood they loved. And then the work that we've done on mental health. This is one of the areas where perhaps the greatest unfairness over decades. People who suffered and could not bring forward their problems because of a horrible stigma that made it impossible for them to get the care they needed. Since the Thrive NYC program was initiated by my wife, Shirlane, we've already seen hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers helped, and we know that that is helping to create a more fair New York City. So these have been major investments. These have been investments that took the idea of big goals, bold goals, and put them into action. And the people of the city have made very clear they believe in that, and they want to see us continue and deepen those commitments. And we, in fact, recognize that not only do we have to serve the people who have been here for a long time, we have to serve more and more new New Yorkers. And one of the things I'll talk about in a few minutes is our growing population in the city and what it means for our budget and why it's one of the reasons we're going to have to stay ahead of an ever-growing city in our budget process. So let me give you some quick definition of what it means for this city to become fairer. I want to try and make this as tangible as possible, and then as we talk about it in the coming months, hopefully you'll see the consistency of our follow-through on this vision. The city becomes fairer when more kids get the start in life that only some families can afford right now. City becomes fairer when people who built their neighborhoods up in good times and bad are able to stay in the neighborhood and in the city they love. The city becomes fairer when we reverse the decades-long neglect of public housing in this city. The city becomes fairer when we heal the wounds of the past and we build trust between police and community through transparency. And the city becomes fairer when we care for New Yorkers who were too often left behind, but they're just as much New Yorkers as any of us. These ideas permeated our budget process, but it was always against a backdrop of having to be prudent, having to be fiscally responsible, again, given an extraordinary level of uncertainty that we're facing. The budget I'm presenting today is balanced, and it includes maintenance of historic levels of reserves. And we believe this is the best budget to protect the strength of this city, the economic growth of this city, and the needs of our people. At the same time, we are keeping a watchful eye on the risks that are coming our way up I-95 and down the New York State Thruway. So we are ever aware of those challenges, and I'll delineate some of those in a moment. I want to thank everyone who was part of putting together this budget. A lot of folks who worked very hard here at City Hall and at OMB and in the agencies. I want to start, of course, with a special thanks to our first Deputy Mayor, Dean Foulahan, who has made the transition out of budget land and into civilian life. And thanks for your leadership, Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, Deputy Mayor Emilia Blasio, Deputy Mayor Richard Bury, and Deputy Mayor Laura Anglin. Thank you all for your great contributions to this effort. To my Chief of Staff, Emma Wolf, and my Chief Policy Advisor, Don Williams. Thank you to my Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, John Paul Lupo, my Senior Advisor, Andrea Hagelgans, and our new OMB Director, Melanie Hartzog. All of them did great work on this budget. Also, we have had very positive and productive conversations with the City Council in the lead up to this budget. Just met with Speaker Johnson earlier today, and then with a large number of council members just a short time ago. I want to thank Speaker Johnson and Finance Committee Chair Danny Drum for their great partnership, and their staffs who we've worked very closely with. Okay, let's do some numbers. The fiscal 19 preliminary expense budget is $88.67 billion. I'll say it again, $88.67 billion. I want to give you a piece of news up front. This is literally news. The approximately $750 million that has been added to this budget since the November plan, and that's money for both fiscal 18 and fiscal 19, the $750 million that's been added since November is entirely offset by savings. So all of those new expenditures have a specific savings offset. Let me give you the big picture on the overall growth of the budget since adoption last year. And when you look at the 19 budget and you look at how it's progressed since adoption, several areas jump out as the primary drivers of the increase. First, in terms of our workforce, many of the contracts we signed 4 years ago and since have now matured, including some payments that had to be made out for workers for past years when they were not compensated fully. So that's one of the things that affects this budget. You'll see other movement in areas like pensions as well, fringe benefits, et cetera. We can delineate that to you, and I know there will be a technical briefing after as well. Another major area comes in the form of the follow-through on our capital vision. The capital spending has become bigger in this administration for a very good reason. Infrastructure that desperately needed investment, and more needs that the people of the city told us were their priorities that came back to capital spending. You know, I've done 51 town hall meetings now, and what do I hear about? The need for more school seats, more affordable housing, more repaving of roads. All of that is capital expenditures. All of it requires debt service. We knew that we would see an increase in debt service on the expense side as a result of the growth of capital. We think that's a good decision. It's a good decision for the strength of our economy, for our ability to serve our people, and we think these are fair costs to include in this budget. And then on the education piece of the equation has also been an important area where we've seen new spending, and we think it is new spending that makes a lot of sense. We've seen more pre-K and 3K teachers. We've seen more special ed teachers as part of this. This is a kind of investment we think pays off not only in the short run, but in the long run. Now, I want to give you a sense of how we got from adoption last year to this point, being able to support this new spending level. And it comes down to three particular areas. Savings, which I will delineate. I give you a piece of what we've done on savings. I'll give you more on that in a moment. Reserves, which we have kept stable. We're very adamant about keeping those reserves intact, and I want to give a lot of credit to the City Council. They have been equally interested in keeping the reserve levels high. And then we have seen several forms of increased revenue, most notably more revenue coming in due to successful audits. And I want to thank everyone at the Department of Finance. They are unsung heroes. I hope some of them are listening, because I want to thank them, because their audits actually brought back hundreds of millions of dollars new money that we had not seen previously by doing an even better job of identifying corporations that owed us more money in taxes and for one reason or another had not fully paid their due. So kudos to the Department of Finance for bringing in some really important new revenue. Okay. Now, the fiscal 19 preliminary budget in many ways consistent with the approaches that we've taken previously. An even greater emphasis on savings. So the citywide savings program that is in effect, I want to emphasize this, is all agencies have been asked consistently to put forward savings plans. That has yielded now, for this budget, an additional $900 million between the agencies and refinancing and other methodologies. It's $900 million in savings additional for fiscal 18 and 19. And very importantly, there's another big savings piece that we want to emphasize, which is the $1.3 billion in healthcare savings that's being achieved this fiscal year, next fiscal year, and will continue. We want to keep building on that. We want to go farther, but that is locked in, that $1.3 billion a year will be continuous. And then an important part of our savings efforts has been the partial hiring freeze. And when I say that, it means several different things. It literally means, in some cases, not hiring for a position. It means, in some cases, delays or accruals. That partial hiring freeze has now, between what we've gotten in already and what we project into 19, will be about $300 million in savings. And we will continue that going forward. But as I said, we've asked every agency to come up with additional savings on top of everything I just delineated. So I am now going to inform you that there will be additional savings of at least an additional $500 million by the time of the executive budget. So we are making that commitment now, and it's a clear message to our agencies and also, again, to all the other folks who are involved in finding savings in this government that we expect to come back before you in a few months with an additional $500 million in savings. So I mentioned that we are focused now on both strengthening the city, strengthening our economy, making investments we think really pay off both humanly and economically, while preparing for a lot of uncertainties. The high levels of reserves are one of the first things we do. But we also focus on what it means for the overall economy. So let me start here and just want to emphasize these are the same numbers that you saw in the adopted budget. So this is pure continuity. This has been an area of real focus on retirees, and I want to again give the council credit. They've really focused in this area. We've kept adding stable from last year to this. Capital Stabilization Reserve, again, is crucial to our efforts to keep building our capital program and our general reserve. So this is stable from last year. Now let me talk to you about what we're seeing overall in the city economy and our economic picture going forward. And I want to begin at the beginning. And this is something I think we're not giving enough attention to as a city, and I want to surface it here and talk to you about it and give you some news in the bargain, which is to really look at our population levels and where they're going. Amazing fact that the city grew by 400,000 people in the last decade. And that is a very good thing on one level, and it creates very big challenges on another level. And it's absolutely connected to our success. We have succeeded at driving down crime. We've succeeded at growing more jobs. You can look at a lot of measures. But one of the interesting ramifications is what it means in new population. To give you some perspective, the first year of Mayor Giuliani's term, population of the city was wait a minute, can you hear me? There we go. 7.8 million people in this city. So at the beginning of 1994, 7.8 million. The first year of Mayor Bloomberg's term in 2002, 8.1 million. When I came into office, it was about 8.5 million. We now, from city planning, have received the estimate that for the first time in our history, by the end of this year, this calendar year, we will reach 8.6 million. And this is quite striking. It's the earliest estimate I've ever heard, and this again comes from city planning, that now there's a projection that we could hit 9 million as early as 2030. So again, look at the steadiness of this growth This number, we've never seen a number this high before in our entire history. It's 8.537673 right now. But literally by the end of December, that number could hit 8.6. Put simply, in the 25 years between the first day of Giuliani's administration and the end of this year, we're talking about growth of 800,000 people. Look at the list of American cities, and there's very few cities in this country that within their city limits have 800,000 people. We have added a whole major city's worth of population here, and that's going to have a lot of ramifications. One of the things we're recognizing more and more in budgeting terms is we've got more people to serve. Now, let's face it, a lot of good happens too. Bigger economy, more jobs, more revenue often comes with that growth of population, but also more people to serve, and we have to make sure, whether it's our police, our schools, all of our public services, that we're able to serve that new population. Now I want to talk about employment, and we're very, very pleased on this front, and kudos to everyone who's been a part of this good work. We have added, in the course of the last 4 years, my first term, we added 415,000 jobs in this city. And that is the most added in a single term in the history of New York City. 415,000 new, that brings us to a total now of 4.43 million jobs. That is the all-time record. So again, if you look comparatively, we've had some other good stretches, but this really something New Yorkers should be proud of. This far surpasses the previous times in our history. Now let me tell you about the unemployment levels. They're good now as of December, 4.3%. That is near historic lows. And it's very important to recognize that it is not low unemployment because people have constantly left the workforce, which would be a real concern. In fact, our workforce participation levels are really impressive right now. 6 in 10 New Yorkers in the workforce, which is a historic high. Also, something we've talked about a lot, making sure the economy was truly a 5-borough economy. We see low unemployment citywide. I have been referring to this as our psychedelic chart today. But you notice, by the way, the winner is Queens, with the lowest unemployment of any borough, Manhattan right on their heels. This shows really nice consistency in unemployment levels dipping across all 5 boroughs. So we said from the beginning, a real goal was to have, we love Manhattan, but we did not want a Manhattan-centric economy. We wanted a 5-borough economy. More and more that is happening. Also crucial to have a diverse economy. This is an area I give my predecessor, Michael Bloomberg, a lot of credit. He really focused on economic diversification. We've seen it continue to grow, and I'll point out some of the areas. Very important fact now, more than 80% of the wages in this city come from sectors other than finance. And everyone here knows the longtime stereotype in New York City was finance was king when it came to our economy. Now 80% of wages come from other sectors. And this gives you a sense, everyone has plenty of examples of, you look in private sector and public sector education, growing healthcare services. You can see lots of examples around the city of that. You don't see tech really clearly here. Some of tech is caught in this category of professional business. Some is caught in information. Tech sector obviously has been a really strong area, continues to be a strong area. We're very excited about the possibilities around Amazon, but beyond that, we've seen steady growth, and the beauty of that for our tech sector is the more that ecosystem strengthens, the easier it is for us to get talent here and startups here and venture capital investments here, and so something very good is happening on that front. Okay, now I want to give you a couple of factual slides that are very, very pertinent to the raging debate in our country and very pertinent to some of the things the President said in the State of the Union. First of all, this fact I've mentioned to some of you before, that the number of immigrants in this city, so this is about the time that my grandmother and grandfather came from southern Italy between 1900 and 1910. This was the previous all-time high. We're approaching those levels again here now. So we're about in terms of percentage at the level of immigrant population we had almost a century ago. Obviously, our economy is booming. We are safer than ever. I think that correlation is really important to point out, that having a strong immigrant community is helping us as a city in so many ways, helping everyone, including families who have been here for generations. So when it comes to the pure economic side, striking facts: more than half of New York City businesses are immigrant-owned, more than 45% of our labor force foreign-born, 39% of household income, and that means $96 billion from foreign-born households. So, I mean, just this right here, the businesses and the number of workers, and again, against the backdrop of a fundamentally broken national debate that's not trying to look at the big picture either in terms of common humanity or the economic impact of immigration. Here's a city with a stunningly vibrant economy, and immigration is a big part of making this economy work. There's a lot of other parts. This is the conversation I'd like to see us have more in the country. How do we make the economy work for everyone rather than how do we demonize the newest amongst us? Okay, so summing up a lot of that, a lot of good things certainly are happening in our economy. There's always more to do. There's real challenges we have to address, but there's some real strength in our economy. And a lot of people in this city are experiencing some of the good in that economy, while we want to do more to make sure the positive benefits are felt more widely. If all we had to think about was ourselves, this might be a much prettier picture. But now gets to the federal challenges and the state challenges. And again, I think I can safely say we've never quite seen anything like this. Let me break down some of this, and let's start with Washington. I mean, we have, in effect, a manufactured crisis right now in Washington. We had a federal shutdown 2 weeks ago. We may have another federal shutdown in a week. I know we've never seen anything like that with one party in control of both houses and the White House. It is very easy to, sense the abnormality of the moment and to sometimes feel dire about it. I will say on the plus side, a lot of members of the House and Senate stood up, including a lot from this city and this state, and fought back the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. That saved health insurance for 1.6 million New Yorkers. That helped to lessen the blow on the Health and Hospitals Corporation. And compared to what I would have thought a year ago, the budgeting process, although it's been abnormal and dysfunctional, it has yielded less negative for New York City than we originally feared to date, because the continuing resolutions basically froze things in place. There is no guarantee of that being what happens next. I want to emphasize part of what we're feeling as we went through this budget is we just got through 1 year of a new presidency. No one knows what's going to happen in the next midterm elections. So it could be status quo, it could be a big change. But what we do know is we've got this presidency in place for 3 more years, and some of the worrisome realities around budgeting could certainly be exacerbated. So we should not rest on our laurels because the first year essentially was suspended animation. And here's where the picture starts to become very problematic. Based on what has already happened, the exposure for fiscal 19 for New York City is $700 million. So the biggest piece is the one we hope can be reversed, and I remain hopeful, especially because of the actions of Senator Schumer trying to work with other members of the House and Senate to protect hospitals in every part of the country. This, of course, refers to the DSH payments, the disproportionate share hospital payments. This program has now expired. Again, I'm hopeful it will be revived before we start to feel the full negative effect. If it is not revived, we have $300 million of exposure right now this fiscal year, $400 million in exposure next year, additional, and every year thereafter. So that's a lot of money that right now we're playing from behind on because the program did expire. We will fight very hard to get it back, and I think we're going to have a lot of allies around the country, not just Democrats, but Republicans as well. Certainly some of my fellow Republican mayors feel strongly. I think some people in the business community feel strongly as well. So this is one I think we have a real opportunity to save. The next two, unfortunately, cannot be saved. The impact of the tax law, the new tax law on our affordable housing program, unfortunately, is that die is largely cast. We believe that will be an impact of something like $200 million a year. because of the new tax rates and rules making it less appealing for investors to work with the low-income housing tax credit. So our estimate right now is that is effectively $200 million that we were able to depend on for our affordable housing programs that we will not be able to depend on anymore. We also know that we benefited from the ability to refinance our bonds in a particular manner earlier under previous law. This law has now ended that. We believe that's going to be a cost of $100 million a year. Again, those two things have happened. They're not going back. These are conservative estimates. I fear it could be worse, but I think these are accurate and conservative estimates. Add those together, that's $700 million in exposure on its face. Here's the bigger problem. The loss of the SALT deduction, the state and local deductibility, the capping of it, immediately hurts hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. So before you even talk about the government budget, let's talk about the people. Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, most of whom are working class and middle class, certainly the vast majority of whom make less than $100,000. They are going to feel the negative effect of this law. We are working with the state to see if there's any way to mitigate it. We really would love to mitigate it. We'd love to find a way, and it only works to do it with the state. We don't have the formula yet, but everyone is putting a lot of energy into it. But until we find that formula, this is a clear and present danger. It's going to affect people's lives negatively. But that's the human impact. Now let me go to the next level of impact and how it would start to hurt us as a government as well. You've already heard Paul Ryan and others talk about the fact that since the tax bill has negatively affected the deficit and obviously allows less resources for potential spending, that the areas they want to look at next are Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. All of them exceedingly problematic for many, many New Yorkers. The one I want to focus you on is Medicaid. We are already struggling at the Health and Hospitals Corporation. A reduction in Medicaid support means fewer benefits, means less reimbursement for our public hospitals. So we're worried that there's another hit coming just because of the domino effect of the federal tax law. This is putting aside any discussion of further threats to the existence of the ACA, and you cannot rule that out either. I'm simply saying the natural follow-through effect of the federal tax law and what it could mean for us. Reminder to everyone, Health and Hospitals is the largest public health system in the nation. It treats 1 in 7 New Yorkers, and most of those folks either have Medicaid or sadly are uninsured. They're either uninsured because they have not taken advantage of the ACA or other opportunities, or they happen to be undocumented. So this is a very bad combination of features we worry about a lot. And it's not here alone. This is something that's going to be all over the country, where you're going to see, remember, deductibility, state and local deductibility, property tax deductibility affected about 100 million Americans. Also, any effort to cut back on Medicaid benefits will affect tens of millions of Americans, every region of the country. A lot of these are double jeopardy dynamics. Your taxes go up and your benefits go down. It's a dangerous combination, and I think we should not underestimate how all this may play out. Finally, I hadn't even gotten to the new White House budget. So, you know, here we are presenting a preliminary budget in the same time frame as every mayor has for decades. The governor presented his budget in the same time frame as governors have for decades. We're going to act on our timeline. Albany will act on their timeline. Things are essentially normal in New York City and New York State when it comes to the timeline of budgeting. But when it goes to Washington, nothing's normal anymore. So remember, last year, President Trump put out a very draconian budget. That has been tied up in the continuing resolution process one upon another. Remember that he will still put out a new budget for the new federal fiscal year. And we will not be surprised to see in that budget substantial proposed cuts to Medicaid, to affordable housing, public housing. Remember last time they put Homeland Security cuts in. That's separate from the immigration issue, just straight up Homeland Security funding cuts for the whole country. Food stamps, SNAP program, there's a lot that we are worried about. And we don't know if that budget process ever resumes normalcy, we do know that that will be the coin of the realm. If the president puts forward a proposal like that, that will be the starting point of anything that happens in terms of budgeting. Okay, that's Washington. Let me take you to Albany now. I will say, and I'll give you some information today. I will say more in my budget testimony in Albany next week. Big picture, we don't like what we see. We see some real substantial shifting of costs by the state, from the state to the city. We see, we've seen this before. We're seeing it again on a major scale. Shifting of costs to the city and unfunded mandates. So right now, the total exposure for New York City is over $750 million. I want to highlight up front, take that federal exposure and the state exposure, and you're talking about potential of $1.5 billion in potential loss of revenue for this city just for fiscal 19. I want to emphasize that, just for fiscal 19. When you combine the dangers coming from both the federal and the state side right now, the specific ones on the table right now, not the domino effect, not the maybes, the specific cuts and cost shifts and unfunded mandates that are part of what's happening in the federal scene and the state budget right now could be as much as $1.5 billion for fiscal 19. Breaking out first, the first $400 million is these areas. I'll just delineate them to you. $144 million in state cuts to charter school funding that we would still be obligated to pay out with city funds. So that's a cost shift. $129 million cut from child welfare services. Now this is just the fiscal 19 numbers. There's some other pieces that will hit fiscal 18 as well. But $129 million in child welfare services. These are services provided around the whole state, but they're only being cut in New York City, nowhere else. And for example, these are the kinds of services that help keep kids out of foster care. So huge human impact, helping kids not end up in a system we obviously are trying to reduce every day. A $65 million cut to special education. A $31 million cut to juvenile justice programs, and that is also an example of an area where it's statewide funding to many jurisdictions, but the only one being cut is New York City. And then this one's particularly quizzical, $9 million cut in rental subsidies for working families in shelters. Just at a point when you would think the state would want to find every way to help us address the homelessness situation, this is actually a cut in the funding we use to address homelessness and get people out of shelter. That plus some other cuts is about $400 million. So that's the first big chunk on the state side. The next piece is school aid. That number in the governor's budget comes in $200 million less than what we projected based on the previous budgets we've seen in Albany. So that's an area of great concern. I'll talk about more in Albany. We all believe there needs to be a full reinterpretation of school aid consistent with the Campaign for Fiscal Equity decision. But even if you're talking more narrowly, just in comparison to previous years, this is a very substantial cut and holds us back from doing a lot of things that we intended to do. And the last piece I want to start by saying is a very commendable policy and an idea we believe in 110% and support, which is the raise the age legislation. Legislation was exactly right. That means 16 and 17-year-olds that used to be held in state facilities will now come to city facilities. We welcome that. But what we said last year and will keep saying is that should not be an unfunded mandate. The state was paying for those young people to be incarcerated. They ended what was a mistaken process and approach. But now the state is not sending the money that they spent on those young people to us so we can accommodate them. The state's sending us the requirement, which we believe in, but not sending us the money to go with it. So that becomes an exposure to the city of upwards of $200 million as well. So you add those pieces together, the state between $700, $800 million right there. And again, in combination with the federal, that gets you up to about $1.5 billion. I'm not even mentioning the MTA. When I give you those numbers, none of that has to do with the MTA. Again, I'll have a lot more to say on that. in Albany. It's a big piece of the picture. But imagine our concern that all the exposure I just talked about excludes any discussion of the MTA. So we are going to, on a lot of these pieces, we think there's a real fight to be had. We're going to work with members of the Senate and the Assembly. The Assembly has been particularly supportive and a partner. We're going to work with a lot of different community organizations and leaders who care deeply about these issues. We're going to fight on each and every one of these to get a better outcome from the city, but we're still dealing with the unknown. Okay. So that's a big picture of where the uncertainty is coming from, and I'll finish that simply by saying, whatever my complaints about the realities of Albany, New York, again, the difference with Washington is Albany is somewhat consistent with its past history. Washington is now, we're dealing with a situation we have never seen before. We cannot predict. We don't know where it's going, and the ramifications are huge. So from a budgeting perspective, that causes a lot of caution on our part. That is part of why, as I go into some of the investments here, you're going to see, unlike a lot of other preliminary budgets, these new investments are the individual sort of programmatic investments are very modest. We think they'll help. We think they'll make a good impact. Some cases they'll help us start to do something we hope to do more later. But they're very modest. And they're modest because we recognize those uncertainties. And we set a clear standard on the new programmatic investments. They had to be offset by savings, and each and every one is. Again, the goal here is to do things that we think encourage a more fair and inclusive city. Start with 3K. This is about making sure that all kids get the strong start in life that only some families currently can afford. Pre-K obviously has been a success. We want to move aggressively with 3K, and so we decided that we could go farther more quickly. We will be doubling the number of new districts that we have committed to in the next 2 years. So it'll be from the next 2 years, instead of 2 districts, we will go to 4. This means an addition of 3,100 new seats, so 3,100 more kids will be reached. The total reach when we get to the build out here will be 12 districts. This is before we get to 2021 when we want to go fully universal. Grand total of almost 15,000 seats. So that's about a quarter of the total impact we hope to have with 3K ultimately. This took about $11 million we were able to offset with savings to allow us to move forward. Let me give you the new districts that will benefit. And there's 4 new. They were chosen, as we said in the previous discussions of 3K, a combination of need, space availability, obviously trying to get a geographical spread around the city. So the new districts will be, some will be in 18, 19, or 20. It depends on each one. We can lay them out for you. But it'll be District 5 in Central Harlem, District 6 in Washington Heights and Inwood, District 12 in Crotona Park and surrounding areas of the Bronx, and District 16 in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Why are we adding specific districts now instead of just waiting till 2021? Because we feel urgency. Our goal is whenever we see the opportunity to speed up the 3K program, we want to do it. We saw a chance to do that right now. We grabbed it. And it's very personal, very human. Every additional child who gets 3K gets a stronger start and more chance to succeed in school and in life. So if we can reach even a few thousand more kids, we want to do that as quickly as possible. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We also know for every family we reach, their savings is $10,000 minimum, in a lot of cases $15,000 or even more per year. So again, within each district, it becomes a universal opportunity just like pre-K. And we're convinced it is a great, great long-term investment and a very worthy one. Pre-K will continue to get some new investment, this time on the capital side, because there have been some areas where there were real gaps in terms of the seats we needed. The Upper East Side is a place where we really struggled to find new seats. We've finally turned the corner. We've opened a lot of new seats in pre-K in the Upper East Side, more coming in September and more coming the September after that. That will get us to the total amount we need. Corona, Queens, another area, one of the most overcrowded areas in the whole school system. We're adding more pre-K seats there. to finally address a lot more of that need. Now I want to turn to housing, and I said earlier, one of the other measures of fairness is that people who built their neighborhoods, stood by their neighborhoods in good times and bad, get to actually stay in the neighborhood and stay in the city. And that means looking for every conceivable way of creating public housing or taking advantage of affordable housing of any kind in the city. We have the biggest affordable housing expansion in the history of the city. We have a huge amount of units being preserved. We're stopping evictions. We're investing in public housing. But we've got to keep looking for new ways still to create and preserve affordable housing. So one of them is beneath us, meaning it is the basement apartments. And this is a really interesting area. The basement apartments in so many parts of the city have not been legal, have not been as safe as they should be, and have not been part of our affordable housing inventory. We propose to invest now in a pilot we're going to start in East New York to work with homeowners and building owners to convert those basement apartments, make them fully legal, and then make them affordable for the long haul. We believe minimally there are 5,000 apartments in this city that will qualify. Ultimately, we'd love to see that number get even bigger, but we have to prove the model first, and we're going to do that in East New York. Another piece that's really exciting is helping our seniors. And there was a great article, I believe it was in the Times a week or so ago, about organizations that match seniors who are looking for roommates. This is a tremendous area of possibility of helping, seniors get a roommate who could be someone that both benefits their lifestyle and quality of life, but also brings resources in. And for folks looking for an affordable place to stay, that extra room in a senior's apartment or home can make all the difference. So this is a really great match. We're putting a modest amount of funding in to deepen this model. We're going to do about 500 people we'll be able to match in the first year. We think we'll be able to do 4,000 over the next few years. If this model works, we can keep expanding it. This is a very cost-efficient concept and really could maximize opportunities for everyone involved. And then one more piece on housing is keeping people in their homes. So that's taken on a lot of forms, preserving affordable housing in place, anti-eviction legal services, but we also found there was a specific problem with harassment of tenants by unscrupulous landlords, and that often took the form of things like hazardous and illegal construction and unpermitted construction. The City Council gets a lot of credit. They passed the Stand for Tenant Safety Law. We're putting in the money now, $7 million, to do enforcement, to make sure that any of these complaints are acted on quickly. The law is about to go in effect. We want to put together enforcement to go with it so that we can respond within 12 hours to any complaint we get. Continue on housing, now talking about public housing. Again, as I said in the beginning, we understand there's been decades of neglect of public housing and the residents. We have to reverse that. This was clear from the beginning. It's a commitment I felt deeply, my whole team felt deeply. We started literally the first preliminary budget presentation I made to all of you 4 years ago, right around this time. We started shifting investment to NYCHA when we ended the police payments by NYCHA, and then after that ended the pilot payments, the tax payments by NYCHA, and we have been continuing ever since. So I want to give you the scorecard here because we know we have an immense amount more to do to address the challenges of public housing. But I do want to be clear that we have been addressing decades of disinvestment by bringing the city into the equation in a way that bluntly it's never been before. And that's not the ideal. The ideal would be the federal government resuming the obligation it originally had around public housing. The ideal would be the state government playing a more meaningful role. But that's not happening right now. We have to do more ourselves to help residents in public housing. So first, the scorecard on what's happened already, what we've already committed in previous budgets, and then I'll go into this one. On previous budgets, $1.9 billion, and that's on the capital side. That's $1.3 billion alone for over 900 roofs of buildings, and that will benefit about 180,000 residents. $250 million to repair facades at 364 buildings. Those facades are a safety matter. We know when things fall off a facade how dangerous it could be is to update and fix those facades and make them safe. $55 million was part of improving security at 15 developments. I mentioned how successful our efforts have been in focusing on public safety. One of the bright lights of our efforts to make the city safer was the very targeted program to improve safety at the 15 most dangerous NYCHA developments. That made a big impact, reached 62,000 residents very consistently. And that included putting in permanent lighting at almost every one of those developments that didn't have enough. So that's some of the highlights on the capital side. On the expense side, again, in the previous budgets, it's $1.6 billion that we have invested, and that was to, first and foremost, give back a lot of that money that was being taken out of the NYCHA budget, putting that money into repairs and into better day-to-day operations, and important things that matter to residents too, like high-speed broadband access. So now where do we go from here? Obviously, it's been a very tough winter, and a winter where so many public housing residents suffer without heat. I've said to you guys many times, thank God, most of the time when buildings lost their heat, it was for only a day and the repairs are made quickly. But it's still an underlying problem we must address. And it's going to take a lot more resources to do it, and we want to start now. So we looked at the heating systems in NYCHA. I want to mention up front, the challenge is it's not just the boilers. We all talk about the boilers. That's a piece of the problem. There's a lot more to it than that, because it turns out a lot of these buildings, the challenge is from the boiler all the way up through the building. I didn't know what a riser was. Thank you, Alicia, for educating me. I didn't know what a riser was, but a riser basically means that the tubes and the machinery that brings the heat up through the building, and a lot of that is not in good shape. So for a number of buildings, you're not only going to have to fix or replace the boilers, you're going to have to go up through the building, tear out walls, put in new structures, and even in some cases, apartment by apartment. These are big, challenging undertakings. It's going to take a lot of effort. We decided to mirror what we did with public safety. On public safety, we said, okay, we have too much crime, too much violent crime in NYCHA. This was 4 years ago. We said, what do we do to go at that fundamentally? NYPD and NYCHA together said, here's 15 developments where the problem is most acute. Throw a lot of resources, a lot of focus to those 15 developments. It brought down crime substantially. Here's the equivalent. We said, where is the heating problem most severe? Turns out there are 20 developments where the physical plant is most problematic, where the heating problems are most consistent, that need the sort of biggest investments, the most fundamental change. Those 20 developments will get an upgrade over the next 3 years. And it does take that time. We're going to do a better job of delineating all the steps that are needed, but I want you to visualize this is not roll up with a boiler, plug it in, leave. This is, and it's not tearing down the whole building. It's somewhere in between. It is going floor by floor and rehabbing the whole building so that the whole system can work. We are adding $200 million in this budget capital to allow for that effort to fix the 20 developments. And that will reach about almost 20,000 apartments. So, you know, we're talking about 50, 60,000 people at least out of the 400,000 people live in NYCHA. And again, we believe this is where the problem is greatest. We're going to have to keep doing more after that going forward. But in the meantime, we know people are looking for relief right now. That is the previous announcement we made a week or two ago, the $14 million, that is some capital, some expense for the mobile boilers and the rapid response teams to improve NYCHA's ability to deal with issues right now. Okay, I want to go to public safety for a moment. And again, very elemental definition of what makes us fairer. What makes us fairer in terms of public safety is healing some of the wounds of the past, bringing police and community together, using transparency as a tool to increase trust. Obviously, one of the answers is body cameras. We're very proud, a number of you there at the announcement. We're going to move the schedule up by 1 year. That's $12 million moved forward. It was always in the budget, but now it's being moved forward because we're ready to do it now, and we will. Another, the original principles I put forward in New York City is fair when we care for New Yorkers who have too often been left behind. One of the saddest realities in this city, a lot of challenges, but one of the truly saddest realities is when a mom ends up behind bars. And some of you may have seen the article about Shirlane's work today, and this came from, she's done these baby showers around the city where new parents are encouraged to come and get information about parenting and all sorts of ideas about how they can turn for whatever help they need, whether it's health or education, whatever it might be. And she did one on Rikers Island, and she was really struck by what those moms were going through, how hard it was for them to have the time and the space and the peace to connect with their kids, how infrequently they connected with their kids, and how horrible that was in terms of breaking one of the most elemental bonds in human life, that between mother and child. And so the question was, what can we do about it? And this funding is both a moral commitment, because we want to help those kids to have a bond with their mom. We want the moms to have a bond with their kids, but we also believe it fundamentally reduces recidivism. We believe that those moms can somehow get a stronger focus on their life after incarceration. It's very important to break a negative cycle for them, but also for the kids, because there has been real research that shows kids who unfortunately are children of those incarcerated have too much of a propensity to repeat. We want to break that cycle. We think this will help. We also think it will reduce the number, and with some other measures that we're undertaking here in terms of diversion and mental health services, we believe this will help, small but important step in reducing the number of folks on Rikers. So the impact of these particular initiatives, we think will be about 159 fewer inmates per day, part of that overall census that we're trying to constantly bring down to about 5,000. This is one piece of a much broader puzzle, but it's one that we think is particularly important and deserved. Next, and this also continues to focus on mental health, the NYC SAFE initiative. This is the focus on making sure that those with mental health challenges and any history or propensity to violence get addressed. This is for teams who are going to work with our police officers and a triage operation to address situations where they're emotionally disturbed individuals who our police encounter, and other situations as well where we need to follow up on folks with mental illness and violence challenges. It's absolutely crucial there be continuity of treatment, and this is part of how we're going to achieve that. So let me conclude and wrap it together. Again, those investments we feel very strongly about. The programmatic investments, none of them are huge, but we think they're very helpful. Obviously, where there's some bigger investment is in public housing, and we think it's very necessary and deserved. The wrap together of all of this is we will carefully, gingerly deal with the times we're living in. We're going to be cautious and fiscally responsible, but there's going to be places where we still think it makes sense to invest. We think it makes sense to invest in terms of our values, but also in terms of the future of the city. Continuing our growth, continuing a strong economy. We need to see ourselves not as an island. We're not an island, but we need to think about what will strengthen our economy and our stability and strength as a city, even while there's confusion in Washington or challenges in Albany. What can we do to strengthen ourselves? And that's what is running through a lot of these decisions. And again, that constant question, what makes us even fairer as a city? Just a couple of words in Spanish, and then I'll turn to our new budget director to join us. Hoy presentamos un presupuesto para hacer de Nueva York la ciudad grande más justa del país. Estamos realizando inversiones para dar a más niños la educación inicial que solo algunas familias pueden pagar. Revertir el abandono de décadas en nuestras viviendas públicas. Mejorar más la confianza entre la policía y la comunidad. Very broad summary there. Now I want to bring up our new OMB director. I want to thank her for taking on this big challenge and jumping in with both feet and managing this process very well, just a few weeks on the job. My pleasure to introduce our OMB director, Melanie Hartzog. Wait, I'm going to give you more height too. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to walk us through the changes since our November 2017 financial plan and the 5-year preliminary budget. The FY19 budget is $88.67 billion. As the mayor mentioned throughout his presentation, we are balanced. Savings in the preliminary budget offset new spending added since the November plan. We're making strategic investments. We're maintaining our reserves at historic levels, $1.25 billion. And we're being cautious on our estimates, both in revenue and debt service. If we can just go to the slide. Oh, here we are. Thank you. Okay. So the gap to be closed in FY19 was $3.2 billion, as you can see up top in the first line there. In this plan, as I've said before, we're balanced in both 18 and 19, and our out-year gaps are manageable. $2.3 billion in 20, $1.6 billion in 21, and $1.7 billion in 22. As the mayor noted today as well, actions in DC and Albany can cause an increase to our gaps. It's why we're being cautious, both in monitoring what's happening with our revenues and in terms of our spending. Moving on to tax revenues, I just want to highlight a couple things here. Our tax revenues are increasing slightly, which reflects a yearly growth rate of about 4.8% in 18 and 4.7% in 19. We see strength in the property tax and the tax audits, but essentially all of our other taxes remain unchanged. There's also a slight increase in our other non-property tax revenues, as you can see, 248 in 18 and slight increases in the out years. In terms of agency expenses, this was also highlighted. The expense changes across 18 and 19 total $750 million. And in terms of our citywide savings program, across the 2 years, it totals $901 million. Again, 18 and 19 I'm referring to. And our savings program offsets our new spending added in this plan since November. The mayor's also made it clear that moving forward between now and the executive budget, we are to achieve another $500 million in savings, and we're confident that we can do that. Moving down further, the labor reserve, we're doing a slight reestimate here, just reflects our current labor settlements, pensions. This is a change based on our actuary accounting for existing benefits. And then we move into the reserves. You can see in 18, we're taking down the reserves by 900 in the general reserve, 250 million in the capital stabilization reserve, and these actions leave about 300 million in the reserve for fiscal year 18. This is a routine adjustment we make. We're halfway through fiscal year 18. And I also want to note that it keeps our reserves in 19 at 1.25 billion. At the bottom line here, you can see once we take these actions, we're at about 2.6 billion, and we're using that to prepay our expenses for fiscal year 19, and that is how we balance. These next two slides I'll go through really quickly. This is just showing our total city funds, and the next slide is going to show you all funds. What I want to point out here is a couple things. Our total city funds, total expenditures is $62.2 billion in 18 and $64.9 billion in 19. Again, just pointing out our general reserve, 318. I went through that in the previous slide. And maintaining $1.25 billion in 19 and out. Those are the last two lines, capital stabilization reserve and general reserve. Next slide is just showing you all funds to give you a sense of the total budget. As we said, in fiscal year 18, $87.4 billion, and 19 is $88.6 billion. If you can see that very small font. And finally, this is just a slide. I won't go into it. It just shows you where your dollar is going in fiscal year 19, and you can see the diversity in our revenues, but obviously property tax makes a big contribution to that and where our spending is. And just in closing, I want to say thank you to the OMB team for not getting me through my first budget, but definitely my budget in this hat. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not your first rodeo, Mel. Not your first rodeo. Okay, and now let us take questions on the budget. David.
Mayor, about half the increase in spending from the November plan goes to city shelters. What's the reason for that spending, and why? Was there a misestimate in the amount of shelter that you need? I mean, I know we've reported that the city has been slow to open shelters. Is that why that money is there? Why is it costing more to open shelters?
I'll start, and Mel will add, and Dean may make a cameo too at some point. Look, the plan to address the homeless situation now is less than a year old. It is being implemented steadily. It comes with real costs, undoubtedly. Goal here over time is to get out of the clusters, which have not been the quality of housing we believe in, to get out of the hotels, which have been very costly, while building up new and better capacity, which also costs money, obviously. There are a lot of transitional steps and a lot of costs involved in it. We think this is the way to get us to a better place. Mostly when you initiate a new major approach, there are a lot of upfront costs, and then you yield, you gain the benefits over time. So we also know, of course, the number in shelter has been consistent. It's not what we want it to be. We want to obviously turn the tide substantially, but we've had to pay for the folks that we do have in shelter. On any given night, we have to find a way to get it done. So I think that's, the technical briefing, they can give you more of a breakout, but I think that's bluntly, the underlying reality. Okay, questions, Grace?
I know that you've spoken about being opposed to having the city put more money into the MTA. The city council speaker has said he does favor it if there are protections in place to ensure that that money is spent on, say, certain projects. Are you open at all in these budget negotiations to increasing the city's contribution to the MTA? Should you be able to guarantee that that money is going to be set aside for certain things?
Not under current circumstances, no. Look, I never say never in terms of if a bunch of things change, but under what the dynamics we know now, no, because one, you see all the threats that I just delineated. We have to protect our reserves, and that money by definition would come out of reserves. That makes me very uneasy. The solution to the MTA situation, if it's the short term, I think you know what I'm about to say to you. The state can address that with their $456 million, which to this hour, no one has denied was taken out of MTA funds and transferred to the state budget, even though earmarked for the MTA. If you're talking about the long term, that's what this legislative session should resolve. I believe in the millionaire's tax for a lot of reasons. More reliable, it includes the fair fare proposal. The governor and his commission put forward some version of congestion pricing that will now go through a lot of debate in Albany. Maybe there's other solutions out there, but whatever it is, it has to be resolved in this session. But the city we have to protect our resources. We have to do the things that, all the topics I just went through, those are fully our responsibility. The state has a responsibility for the MTA. The state does the revenue plan right, which they could in this session. That solves the problem, and you don't talk about city revenue at that point.
Follow if I could.
Please.
I think when you say, you made the point, we have to protect our resources in the city. Many New Yorkers who are, pulling out their hair trying to get from A to B, commute to work on the subway system that's deteriorating, would say, listen, let's use our resources to fix this problem. What do you say to that?
I've talked to many New Yorkers about this very topic. I had 51 town hall meetings. And what I found in those 51 town hall meetings over the course, particularly of 2017, I tended to poll the room, and a lot of you were there when I polled the room, is people understand what they didn't understand a year earlier. The responsibility resides in Albany. The power resides in Albany. The decisions on the MTA budget reside in Albany. The leadership of the MTA is chosen in Albany. They need to fix the problem. They've never said to the city of New York, hey, you make all the decisions now regarding all the money that New Yorkers are putting in something. This is one of Dean's favorite points. If you look at all the different ways that New Yorkers pay for the MTA, whether it's fares or taxes or many other things, we're putting all the money in, and we have never had the dominant say over the use of our own money. Right now, the MTA has a lot of resources. They should use those resources better. They should focus on the right things. That's part of why my appointees did not vote for the actions that we thought were extraneous compared to fixing the signal systems and the things that would help the trains run on time. So one, use the money you have appropriately. Two, get back the $456 million that was earmarked for the MTA. And then three, let's get a long-term funding plan. I think the millionaire's tax is the best one. I've laid all that out at town hall meeting after town hall meeting, and I think when people hear it, they get it, because I think, unfortunately, respectfully, I think a lot of the media questions have been presented as, well, the only way to fix it is with a city contribution. It's just not accurate. It can be fixed with existing MTA resources being used better. It can be fixed with the the state returning the $456 million. It can be fixed with a long-term plan. If I took $456 million from something it was earmarked for and transferred it someplace totally different, you all would rightfully call me on the carpet. I can't believe it is in plain sight and it hasn't been acted on. I hope in this budget process there will be a concerted effort to return the $456 million. But none of that requires city funds for there to be action. Please.
Mr. Mayor, you described how the slide for the reserve funds is consistent, same that we saw last year. But then you also laid out all of these potential risks from the state and federal government. Why didn't the city increase the amount of money in the reserves?
It's always an option. It's certainly something I know the council is looking at as well. I mean, we have to balance the factors. Clearly, there were some small but important things we thought would be very helpful to the well-being of the city. There's other things where we have obligations like labor costs based on previous labor agreements that we have to pay. It's a big piece of some of the increase here in the overall budget. We looked at all that and we said, we're not doing any big new programmatic things, and anything we do is going to be paid for by savings, but it's not the time yet to be able to comfortably devote more resources to reserve. I'm going to look at that going up to the exec based on how our revenue is doing, how our costs are doing, what's going on in Albany, what's going on in Washington. If we stay even, we are still at the highest reserves the city's ever had, and that's very important. But I'm not ruling out adding, but we don't have a plan to right now. Please.
And then just to follow up, the $500 million in additional savings that need to be found in time for the executive budget, could that include cuts to programs or personnel?
It could include anything that agencies put forward. We are respecting agencies by saying, everyone put forward your savings plan. And we're respecting them to identify the areas where they can economize. And everyone has to do it. And then, as I said, there's other areas as well, refinancing in other areas where we can save money. So I don't want to speculate on what it'll be because we have to see what everyone puts forward, but it begins with the agencies self-nominating savings. Joel.
Just to follow up on the additional DHS expenses, you mentioned transitional costs of the plan. Are you referring mostly to the higher costs of hotels and the clusters which you're getting out of, or are there other transitional?
That's part of it. I mean, again, in the technical briefing they go chapter and verse, but that's a great example. You know, we got out of a lot of clusters. I don't know if while I'm talking, if someone has that number handy, but both before the plan and since, we have continued to get out of clusters. And that has sometimes meant that we didn't have capacity and we had to turn to pay-by-the-day hotel. I don't feel bad about that reality because it's on the road to a larger solution, and I think all of you would say, and a lot of New Yorkers would say, the clusters were a bad idea to begin with. I wish we didn't have to spend the money, but I'm being, eyes wide open about this is part of the process of change. So yes, that is certainly one of them, and there are costs and startup costs associated with building out a new shelter system. So look, we are really looking forward to the day where we start to turn the tide on reducing the number of people in shelter, reducing the number of people in hotels, saving costs for both of those reasons, but it will take some time to set up the apparatus. You have a note for me? That's the number of people or units? Since when? Hold on. This is what we call a lifeline. Hold on. Lifeline. Since January 2016, so over the last 2 years, we have gotten out of 1,466 cluster units, correct? And that's, again, usually assuming 3 people to an apartment as a very broad measure in New York City. Almost 4,500 people. out of those conditions, which is a very good thing, but it definitely comes with costs. Back there?
Talking more about agency savings, you mentioned it's sort of a self, I mean, are you asking agencies to, is there a number, is there a peg?
No,
Or
it's not a peg.
It's kind of an honor system thing you're
It's
asking?
not even an honor system. Somewhere between the two. It's not a peg. A peg is, we're going to cut you all 2%, 3%, whatever, even if, the world's going to come to an end, we're still making the cut. Even if some horrible thing is going to happen, we're going to still make a cut. We don't believe in that approach. Honor system is everyone suddenly become perfect beings and, come up to us with a wheelbarrow full of money and give it away. That's not going to happen either. In between is, we set a goal very publicly. You all heard it. $500 million by the time of exec. And we have to get there. And we're going to see what we can achieve with the refinancings and other methodologies. But we're saying to every single agency, tell us what you would cut if you have to cut. And then we're going to decide which ones we think are most pertinent to get to that number. We just have to get to the number.
And do you have any particular examples of areas where agencies have found savings over the past few months?
I don't have evocative examples. Do you guys have it, or do you want to do it in the technical briefing? We can do it in the technical briefing. Someone was back there? Yes.
Mayor, looking at the property tax revenue and the impact of the limitations on SALT deductions, are you concerned, or is the tax plan causing the city to look differently at the property tax levy in the future? I know the rate hasn't changed, but obviously the levy has grown over the years. Are you looking to perhaps take in less property tax revenue? I know that often gets brought up, in terms of mitigating the SALT deduction.
Since I love to refer in this session to my 51 town hall meetings, I will refer again to the topic that has come up in pretty much every one of my 51 town hall meetings. And I've leveled with people about how we're going to handle property tax, and the federal tax bill has made things worse all around. Let's be very clear. Fundamentally broken policy and mistaken policy that's going to have very negative ramifications for the country and for this city. Before you even talk about what it means for the individual taxpayer or homeowner, which is also really, really bad. So it's a bad human individual impact and a bad impact on the city as a whole. But we still have to make decisions in the overall context. Job one, working with the state, is to see if we can blunt the impact of the federal tax bill and find some kind of formula that passes muster to ensure that people don't feel that loss of deductibility. We're still hopeful. We don't have the magic bullet, and we've said, I've talked to the governor, and I know my team has talked to his staff, that we want to get there, we want to help. That would be a really good thing, but we have no guarantees yet. But meanwhile, I have leveled with people about what revenue does, right? Anything that cuts revenue means cutting affordable housing, police, schools, sanitation, and I get about a sentence or two in, and everyone's like, no, don't do that. And not unfairly. I say, hey, we just put 2,000 more officers on patrol. Do you want us to keep that in place? Absolutely. We have pre-K. Do you want that? Absolutely. 3K? Absolutely. So we have to come to grips with people want and need all these things. They're also really important for the future of the city economy. And this is where we start to sort of think macro strategic. If we're growing economically, we have more jobs, we're bringing in more revenue to the city. That's really important for our long-term stability. You don't grow by not spending money. It's classic, you spend money to make money. By making our schools better, we're growing, we're creating more jobs, we're getting more companies to stay, to come here, et cetera. But I can't tell you how many people in business have told me that having pre-K for free has been a really attractive sales point to the professional talent they're trying to bring in to make the city even stronger. 3K will only amplify that. Safest big city in America, that is a huge selling point for anybody considering economic expansion here. So we have to keep making those investments, I feel very, very strongly. My way of protecting homeowners is, I've said it now 5 years in a row, we are not raising the property tax rate. There is no plan going forward to raise the property tax rate. I do not see a scenario, so long as I'm mayor of the city, where we will raise the property tax rate. What we got to do for homeowners is come up with a bigger property tax reform plan, which will start quite soon, and you'll hear more about it soon. at least to create balance and consistency, but also to be revenue neutral, which I've said many times. So when you add all that together, I cannot make up for the mistake of the federal tax bill while doing my job. I can try working with the state to blunt some of the impact, however.
And if I could just
Please.
follow up, sort of talking about the overall spending number that we're looking at here. You know, you're pointing out that some of this new spending is being offset by savings, but the city's spending considerably more than the 750 million you're citing as new spending that's been offset. You know, we're looking at $4 billion more than last year's proposed budget, $2 billion more than last year's adopted budget. Can you give us a better sense of how you're squaring, saying things like, you know, we found savings in the budget while spending so much more money?
Sure. So when you look at the growth, and again, they'll go over all the details with you, but I can make this a broad statement. You know, personnel related, labor contracts, fringe, pension, et cetera, it's about $2 billion almost of this growth. We feel very confident that was the right thing to do. We needed labor contracts. It was absolutely wrong. Our workforce was without contract. The labor deal we struck starting in 14, the pattern we set, I think has been broadly recognized as a fair one, but also one that was fiscally responsible. But it had a lot of costs that had to play out, including making up those lump sum payments for the years where there was no labor plan or labor agreements. So that's one piece of the equation, and some of it obviously is we have added to the workforce and we feel it has been very productive. The 2,000 more officers on patrol, the new pre-K and 3K teachers, the new special ed teachers, sanitation workers, go down the lists of the things we've invested in. We think they have had a very positive impact on the city. So more building inspectors, and some of the things we've done, traffic enforcement agents, building inspectors, will bring back revenue too, in addition to improving safety and quality of life. So we feel, everything is by design, and we feel the design is right. Why that more recent phenomenon is important is to say we're not looking for major new programmatic initiatives. That's important. We feel like we've put in place the most fundamental ones. The affordable housing plan, pre-K and 3K, neighborhood policing. You know, the big pillars are in place and are naturally growing. We're not throwing out a whole host of big flashy new programs. The things we're talking about now are pretty modest. And we're saying we want new things to be offset by savings. And we're increasing the savings levels regularly, including telling you up front there's going to be another $500 million in a matter of months. So I think it does come together very well, but that's the underlying reasoning. Yeah.
Two questions on the risks from Albany. The first one is, you have the 750 million total potential risk, but you said you're not including the MTA.
Correct.
What's the rationale behind not adding that to the potential risk?
Because we disagree with the whole concept that there should be any exposure to the city. And I'm saying to you, I note that that debate will rage, but we're not putting that notion on the table. And so the things that we have accounted for are specific, tangible risks. I noted on the federal side, the still to be determined domino effect of the tax law. You could also put the MTA issues on the state side. There's a lot of gray areas and wild cards, but in this, we're counting only the things that we know we have to respond to.
And the specifics here that you did list out, did you get any explanation, any rationales, or anything that you understand as the reasoning behind these 5 specific bullets of the cuts to the city or the cost shifts?
No. I mean, we've been maintaining a dialogue with the state the last few months on everything about the budget, but we were not given a rationale for why these cuts made sense. Back there?
Is there any way to expedite the $200 million for heating systems at NYCHA?
We absolutely are going to look to expedite in every way, but I do want to say, and I want to, again, anyone has a concern, tell them to come find me, because I'm not going to play games with people. I care deeply about the 400,000 people who live in NYCHA. But anyone who thinks we put money in the budget and their building is fixed the next day, that's just not fair for anybody, respectfully, in the media or advocates or anyone to project something to people that cannot be true. This is the real world we're living in. If you invest money, it takes time to take that money, find the company that's going to do the work, put the money in their hands. They are hiring workers. They're going to do the work. And I mentioned in the case of some of these buildings, it will take going through every single floor of the building and basically rehabbing every floor. So of course it's going to take time, and people should not be promised a rose garden. I think New Yorkers respond much better to blunt truth. So in some developments where there's a heat problem right now, some of the extra resources could help as we get more emergency response folks, as we get more mobile boilers. But in terms of fixing something that's been broken in many cases for a long time, that's why I said it's going to take up to 3 years. Some buildings will be faster. We're going to line them up and try and move them as fast as possible. I'm going to hold people responsible. It's obviously going to be our new general manager at NYCHA, Vito Mostacciolo, will be responsible for moving that as aggressively as possible. But you're talking about massive undertakings. Yes, Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, if the state doesn't decouple from the federal government, it will get a windfall.
On the tax issue?
$1.5 billion
Right.
in extra taxes. Some of that will go to New York City. I wonder if that money is in your budget, or you are urging the legislature to decouple so you won't get the money and people will get a benefit.
So let me make sure I understand your question. Are you talking about the impact on individual New Yorkers, or are you talking about the impact on the city budget?
And my understanding is this, and I know that the Senate is actually passing legislation. So there's a number of deductions that people in New York can take in the federal tax code they used to be able to take.
Right.
Unusually, if we don't decouple the state from the federal government, they won't be able to get those deductions. So the state will get a windfall
Correct.
of $1.5 billion.
Right.
New York City gets a piece of that.
Yeah.
Is that money in your budget?
No,
And
we.
are you calling on the state to decouple so the taxpayers will get a benefit?
Okay, let's separate the pieces. I'm not going to tell the state how to do their budget process. I'm going to tell you how we do our budget process. We are not recognizing that revenue because we hope to work with the state to shield New Yorkers from the negative impact of the Trump tax bill. Taking away deductibility, which had been in place in the United States since 1913, which was the ultimate bipartisan consensus, was an affront to the people in New York and many other places, and really hurt the bottom line of working class and middle class families. We have to see if we can protect those families. The governor, I think, is on the right track. We want to work with him to get it done. In the meantime, we refuse to recognize those potential revenues because we're trying to actually make sure we don't get them. We think it would be much more fair to find a way to blunt the impact. So at this point, we have no such plan.
Just follow up, the governor has proposed a number of possibilities for protecting New Yorkers, possibly a payroll tax, possibly finding a way to have people make charitable contributions instead of taxes.
Right.
Are there any of those ideas that you personally favor or you would like to see?
We are analyzing this. The one that's most interesting is a payroll tax, unquestionably, because it's the one that looks most reachable. Marcia, I'd say this is wildly complex because the tax code is wildly complex. You remember they used to say they'd have it on a postcard? That didn't happen. You know, it's still a very complex tax code, and it takes a lot for everyone to figure out their individual taxes, and we have to figure how all the pieces fit. But the one that looks most promising is the payroll tax. But our message to the state is, let's do this together. The two systems are interconnected, as you know. State and local taxation are all sort of part of the same structure. We want to figure out if we can solve that problem. Mara.
Mr. Mayor, going back to the personnel costs for a moment, they represent, if my math is correct, at this point about 55% of the total budget. So the question is just, I know you said some of these investments are really necessary, but are you going to be looking for any kinds of additional savings from unions in upcoming negotiations at all? And do you have any concerns long-term about adding these kind of recurring expenses to the city budget in case of a downturn?
You always have to be concerned about what would happen in a downturn. We obviously have strong reserves as our first line of defense. In some of the areas where some of the agencies have been fiscally distressed, we have used attrition obviously in the case of NYCHA, in the case of health and hospitals. So we have more than one tool, God forbid we deal with a crisis. But my goal for our labor negotiations is to achieve a lot of what we achieved last time. A very balanced deal that was fiscally responsible, but also fair to working people. And we definitely want to continue to deepen our commitment to healthcare savings. That's the area that's most promising in terms of big, sustainable savings, is to go deeper into the healthcare area. That's something we'll certainly be talking to labor about.
Why not lower property taxes?
It's the same exact point, and I think you can read my mind. Unless you want to give away all that revenue that supports everything we just discussed, that does not make sense. Go ahead, Gloria.
Mr. Mayor, a question on the hiring freeze. Do you have any numbers now, a year later, to show the kind of effect the freeze had? And the headcount continues to grow despite that hiring freeze. So are you saying it will definitely not grow this year, or?
The hiring freeze, again, is for administrative and managerial personnel of certain types. And in some cases, freeze means a delay in the time when someone is hired, and accruals. I mean, there's different methods, all of which save money. It's a big government. So even if you're freezing just a type of profession, it still adds up to a lot. So we can go over to you how that's been achieved. But no, on frontline workers, the traffic enforcement agents, the building inspectors, the 3K teachers, the special ed teachers, we have continued to hire them because we believe it's strategically necessary. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had another question regarding debt
Just say
service.
whenever you want to jump in. Hold on one second. Do you want to add here? Okay. Here we go.
Just to get back to you on the hiring freeze, so since adoption, or I should say since executive, as we said, up through preliminary, that close to 300 million affected about 4,800 positions were affected. And in the course of fiscal year 18 as well as 19, and as the mayor said, it includes a number of different actions. It could be an actual headcount reduction, it could be a hiring delay, or what we call accruals.
And so the other question was, in terms of savings, you're saying part of them are helped by debt refinancing, right? And so I'm wondering, we talked about the advance refunding issue in the federal tax plan. Are you taking that into account, and do you have any information yet about how that could impact you?
Well, as I said earlier, that's about $100 million. We said $100 million impact. That's what we believe. Absolutely, we are assuming that now. Sadly, that it will hurt us to the tune of $100 million a year. Just from that. Wait, who hasn't gone? Anyone hasn't gone? Go ahead, David. David, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, in the fact sheet that we got beforehand, it was noted that, I guess $750 million in additional capital funding would be put towards the affordable housing plan. Is that in addition to the $1.9 billion that was promised last year, or is that the same
That's
spending?
everything we talked about back in October. Yeah, so the 1.9 billion was, and Alicia, you're going to coach me as I do this, the June action last year was to create more lower income units, more senior units, more veteran units. That was 1.9. And then we announced, I think it was October, going to the 300,000 unit plan and the resources needed to achieve that. So that's what you're seeing there. Yeah, go ahead.
The budget, preliminary budget does not include a little over $10 million for programs that support homeless students. My understanding is that it was in the preliminary budget 2 years ago. Last year it wasn't in there, but then was added during the negotiating process. So we're seeing record levels of homeless students in the public school system. Can you explain why that money is not in this preliminary budget?
Yeah, the strategic goal has not changed. We're going to be there for those kids. And as you know, we started providing them a lot more services in shelter. And we will continue to do that. Whether the current design and the current cost is right is what we're not sure about. So this is one of the things we sometimes do. If we don't feel we have the right answer at preliminary, we put off to exec on something that we know we can equally handle at exec. So the strategic commitment is 100% there. How it will be designed, how much it will cost will be determined by exec.
There will be money for homeless students.
There will certainly be money for homeless students. What services we will give, where, how, when, how much it'll cost is what we have to work through.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about this
from Albany.
Can't hear you. Turn this way.
Can you tell us more about this cut you referenced from Albany and rental subsidies?
Yeah.
Who's not familiar, what's the program and what's the cut?
You'll get more details, but basically, this is about people being able to use support, vouchers, et cetera, to get affordable housing and get out of shelter, and the rules that govern that. And because of what's proposed in this budget, a lot more New Yorkers will not be able to access this support, and it will actually take us in the wrong direction. We've got to figure out how to get as many opportunities for people to get out of shelter as possible. We have always needed state support for that. This is one of the things we used, and now we're losing an impact of about 9 million, but they'll go through it in detail in the technical.
Follow on that and a follow on one other thing. When you've listed your Albany priorities, I don't think you've listed the Hevesy bill for the state subsidy program. Do you feel like that, because of other factors, that's more or less off the table and not something you're pursuing?
We believe in that bill. We absolutely believe in that bill. I mean, again, I have not done my budget testimony yet, and we really have not gone into full gear with our Albany blitz to try and get things done up there. There'll be a lot of things on the agenda, both budgetarily and otherwise. No, but we very much believe in the bill, and I think one of the first things we want to do is talk to the leaders of both houses to see where it stands and if there's a way to get it fast-tracked, because I think it's part of the solution.
The union negotiations, is the idea of employees contributing to a healthcare premium, is that on the table at all in your mind and in your negotiation?
I'm not going to get into the details of negotiation, obviously. What we said to the unions is, we really like what we did together last time, both in terms of the fairness of the contract and really substantial healthcare savings. And the healthcare savings are in everyone's interest, right? It's money that can be saved, that can go to other huge needs in the city. We do believe in public employment. That's a debate I'll have anytime, anywhere. We believe in it. We believe the additions to public employment have been healthy and good for the city. One of the ways you keep that happening is to have resources and make reforms and find savings. So I believe the folks in the labor movement in this city get that by and large, and they certainly showed it last time. I'm not going to get into the specific components. We want to figure out what both sides can agree upon and what we think will be effective.
Related to the healthcare savings, I believe that when the original agreement said that if the savings were achieved, that there would be a $300 million bonus to labor as a result of that. At what point would that?
That is the panel of judges like me are like, we respectfully don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Did you have another? No. Okay.
To follow up on what Melissa's asking, I think what she means is if they achieve the savings, that then there was a cost-sharing bonus if they hit the 3.4 billion. So have they hit it, and will they get the bonus as a result of having hit that savings target?
I'm unclear on that formulation. So wait, we'll do it in a technical, because I have a right to say I'm unclear without that formulation. I know we're doing well on hitting our overall goals. I'm certainly not recalling from 2014 that. It may well be something to it. You all will work it through. Go ahead.
Mayor, the lower federal corporate tax rate is going to make tax credits that the city uses to finance public housing much less valuable.
Yep.
You recently expanded the city's affordable housing goal. Does the budget allow for that? How can that goal still be met when that gets a lot harder?
So I'm going to because I said this earlier, and I know it's a lot of material to be fair to all of us, but let me say it again so we're, here we go. Okay. The impact of, again, to be fair to the federal government, a sentence I don't usually say, the low-income housing tax credit survived, but was undermined by those changes in the tax rates that you referred to. That impact will be about $200 million a year for us in capital dollars. So that's, trying to assess and model out the impact and everything we can do to mitigate it. We're unfortunately assuming a $200 million a year loss in terms of what we could do with that money. In terms of the other item that came up before on the bond refinancing, again, that was that early refinancing model was abolished. That's a bad thing for us. That's going to cost the city $100 million. So I just want to make sure everyone hears that up front again. Okay, last call. Last call going once, twice. Thank you, everyone.